Breaking news, breaking news. Come on in, folks. JLR Investigates. We are in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Major update in the Gene Hackman case. What happened to Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy? Also, their German Shepherd, Bear. We're about to find out, folks. Actor Gene Hackman, as they've been reporting suspicious death of all of them inside their Santa Fe, New Mexico home. Mummified, possibly died and been there for a while. We're about to find out key details here. Is this a criminal investigation or not? The death of Gene Hackman. We covered it briefly on JLR Investigates. This happened on February 26, 2025. Welfare check to the house, and they found Gene Hackman in a mudroom. Near his cane. Some say he fell. Did he fall? Did Gene Hackman fall? And then his wife was found dead in the bathroom near a space heater. Open bottles of pills. What in the world is going on here? Scattered on the countertop. And then their dog was found. Horrible situation. The beloved actor Gene Hackman. Now, there's a lot of speculation circulating about this suspicious death. Hackman was 95 years old. I will be grateful if I can even live to 95 years old. 95 years old. His wife was 65. So his wife was significantly younger by 30 years. But what is authorities about to reveal? We are about to find out. Come on in. We're about to listen to an updated. Now, I was kind of suspicious when I first heard this. I don't know about you, but I was definitely suspicious when I first heard this. And I'm like, well, but there's a lot of theories on what happened. We just don't know. But I'm sure we will probably get an update that will reveal stuff that we have not previously known. A lot of speculation going all over the internet. Some people say he was murdered. Other people say he had maybe like a suicide pact between him and his wife. Others say one died and the other panicked and did something to themselves. Others say that, one had a medical condition. There's just so many different theories. They say their bodies were found in similar fashion. Gene Hackman. So, yeah, they're in Santa Fe. We're going to see what they say, what's going on here. Come on in, folks. Did a crime occur? You would think of a crime. They've done warrants, though. They've done warrants. They had tape all over the house and everything like that. Gene Hackman. I remember him in Superman. Lex Luthor. What's your favorite Gene Hackman movie? Got a lot of. He's been in a lot of movies, man. Unforgiven, French Connection. He's received numerous awards over the years. He's loved in Hollywood. Nice crib. His home's nice. But a lot of questions are circulating on what happened. Well, we're going to get the insight. So they're saying the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office is the medical examiners, the state medical examiners. I am reading some information that some of the media has put out there. A slow drip of information has emerged from the sheriff's office after the bodies were found February 26th. But investigators, tight-lipped. But there is a lot of intense pressure to deliver answers to the paparazzi, the media, the YouTubers, us, the fans, the viewers. What happened? Remember, this is the same area that investigated the Alec Baldwin case, right? Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's beautiful up there. North of Albuquerque in the mountains there. Beautiful. Now, the bodies were discovered by 2 maintenance workers. Who were the maintenance workers? Who were the 2 maintenance workers? Who were the 2 maintenance workers? That has really never been revealed, right? Has it? They saw the remains of Gene Hackman through a window, and they called the police. His body was found near a kitchen, near his cane, too. Near his cane, and mummified, indicating that they've probably been dead there for at least days. Some say weeks. 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 So, yeah, we're about to see, folks, what's going to happen here, what they're going to say. I'm a little suspicious, to be honest with you. I've been, briefly looking at this each day, and I thought there was going to be memes out there like, what happened to Gene Hackman? Then, you think of other things and other, we don't really want to go down the crazy criminal elements, but man, some people say insurance, some people say inheritance money, some people throw family members into the fray. I'm sure they've seen it all. The family has said they're waiting on toxicology. So what was in their systems? That would be a clear indication of possibly what happened, the toxicology. Hollywood did mourn his death. He was at Hoosiers. Remember Hoosiers, the basketball movie? Crimson Tide. He had a 40-year career. His house was nice, but I thought Hackman would live in a mega mansion. It's nice. It's nice. Actually, at the beginning of this live, I was going to play, show the aerial footage of his house and everything like that. They had it blocked off like a little gated community, goes up the hill. All right, so yeah, you see this here, media, Santa Fe Sheriff. Is it Aiden? A-D-A-N? I'll just say Aiden Mendoza will be joined by officials from the New Mexico office of the medical investigator and the Mexico Department of Health. Doesn't seem like FBI is involved. Doesn't seem like FBI is investigating. So we'll see here shortly. So they're at the sheriff's office. They're at the sheriff's office. You can see. We'll see what happens here. Keep your comments in. And also, I'd like to know, what is your favorite Gene Hackman movie? Candace M says the pacemaker last signaled on a certain day, which for Mr. Hackman could give a significant clue. Let's listen in. Maybe this is one of those testing things. We got the volume. We're going to put the volume up and see. This is probably like a who's going to talk and everything like that. Yeah, usually what happens is before press conferences, the PIO, public information officer, will come to the podium, do either a microphone check or inform the public on what exactly is going to be said. So they'll be coming out very shortly, folks. Come on in. The death of Gene Hackman. Don't forget his dog, too, and his wife. Don't forget the German Shepherd, Bear, German Shepherd. He has 5 Academy Award nominations, and he has been featured in 80 films. Wow, 80 films. It's a lot. 80 films. He just, after Hollywood, he kind of just got away from that Hollywood craziness out there in Los Angeles and got a nice crib there in Santa Fe, overlooking a magnificent view up there. He wanted just, they say he was like to paint. Gene Hackman liked to paint, writing skills. He did a lot of weaving and fabric, I'm reading. He is a global superstar, for sure. Family's devastated by his loss. So we are about to hear what happened with Gene Hackman. Come on in. We got a Gene Hackman press conference coming up on JLR Investigates. In the meantime, where's everyone watching from? Where is everyone coming in from? Please share where you're from. Welcome aboard as we try to have an understanding. Okay, here we go, folks. Here we
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Sheriff Adan Mendoza, Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. With me today is Dr. Heather Jarrell, Chief Medical Investigator for the New Mexico Office of the Medical Investigator, Dr. Aaron Phipps, New Mexico State Public Health Veterinarian, New Mexico Department of Health, and also Chief Brian Moya, Santa Fe City Fire Department. This investigation started on February 26th with the discovery of Mr. Hackman and Miss Arakawa and their dog at the residence. I just want to do a short recap and then touch on some new information. As we know, both individuals tested negative for carbon monoxide. City Fire conducted tests and deemed scene safe for deputies to conduct their investigation. The preliminary pacemaker interrogation results were released last week, and I'll let Dr. Jarrell touch more specifically on those results. The gas company New Mexico, they also did an analysis of the residence, and they found one minor leak in a single burner on the kitchen stove, which was 0.33% of room air, which was pretty minute and insignificant. Since that time, Xena, the deceased dog, has been taken for necropsy at the Veterinary Diagnostic Services, and we'll be awaiting those results. Let's speak a little bit in reference to the timeline for Betsy Arakawa. We know from our investigation that on February 9th, 2025, she picked up Xena from Gruta Veterinary Hospital. There was a procedure that was done with the dog, which may explain why the dog was in a crate at the residence. Let's move on to February 11th, 2025. Mrs. Arakawa had an email conversation with her massage therapist at about 11:21 a.m. Moving on into the afternoon, Ms. Arakawa was at the Sprouts Farmers Market between 3:30 and 4:15 p.m. Ms. Arakawa was seen on surveillance video at the CVS pharmacy in Santa Fe from 4:12 to 4:20 p.m. She then stopped at a local pet food store at about 4:54 p.m. Her car was seen on surveillance, and the remote control clicker that is assigned to her and her vehicle was used to enter the subdivision to gain access to the gated community at 5:15 p.m. Numerous emails were unopened on her computer on February 11th. There was no additional outgoing communication from her or known activity after February 11th, 2025. The cell phone information and the cell phone data is pending. We're working with state police to get the information from those phones, but our investigation shows that all the last known communication and activity from Ms. Arakawa was on February 11th. I'm going to go ahead and turn over the podium to Dr. Jarrell. I would ask that everybody refrain from asking questions until everybody has provided their statements. I'll step up to the podium, and then we'll go ahead and field questions from the media. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. I'm Dr. Heather Jarrell, the Chief Medical Examiner for New Mexico at the Office of the Medical Investigator. I'd like to begin by stating that it is unprecedented for the Office of the Medical Investigator to make public statements about death investigations. However, the circumstances surrounding these two deaths require accurate dissemination of important information. I've also spoken with the Hackman family prior to this conference, who are aware of the autopsy findings and conclusions and are aware of this conference. On Thursday, February 27th, I performed an autopsy on Mr. Gene Hackman. Medical examiner Dr. Daniel Gallego at the Office of the Medical Investigator performed a full autopsy on Miss Betsy Arakawa Hackman, also on Thursday, February 27th. By report, Miss Arakawa Hackman's legal name is Betsy Hackman, which is how she will be referred to hereafter. The cause of death for Miss Betsy Hackman, aged 65 years, is Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome. The manner of death is natural. Autopsy examination and full body postmortem CT demonstrated no findings of trauma internally or externally, with microscopic findings consistent with Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome. Laboratory testing was positive for hantavirus at a clinical lab, with required confirmation testing positive at Scientific Laboratories Division. Testing for COVID-19, influenza, and other common respiratory viruses was negative. Testing for carbon monoxide was negative. There were no other significant natural disease findings. Pills present on scene were thyroid medication, which were being taken as prescribed and is not currently a concern for a contributory cause of death. The cause of death for Mr. Gene Hackman, aged 95 years, is hypertensive and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, with Alzheimer's disease as a significant contributory factor. Autopsy examination and a full body postmortem CT examination demonstrated no acute findings of internal or external trauma and showed severe heart disease, including multiple surgical procedures involving the heart, evidence of prior heart attacks, and severe changes of the kidneys due to chronic high blood pressure. Examination of the brain showed advanced Alzheimer's disease, as well as blood vessel changes in the brain secondary to chronic high blood pressure. Laboratory testing performed at Scientific Laboratories Division was negative for COVID-19, influenza, and other common respiratory viruses. Testing for hantavirus was negative. Testing for carbon monoxide was negative. Additionally, there were no autopsy findings concerning for hantavirus infection. I have been asked when death occurred for these individuals. There is no reliable scientific method to accurately determine the exact time or date of death. Mr. Hackman's initial pacemaker data revealed cardiac activity on February 17th, with subsequent pacemaker interrogation demonstrating an abnormal rhythm of atrial fibrillation on February 18th, which was the last record of heart activity. Based on this information, it is reasonable to conclude that Mr. Hackman probably died around February 18th. Based on the circumstances, it is reasonable to conclude that Ms. Hackman passed away first, with February 11th being the last time that she was known to be alive. Lastly, clinically, hantavirus infection is characterized by flu-like symptoms consisting of fever, muscle aches, cough, sometimes vomiting and diarrhea that can progress to shortness of breath and cardiac or heart failure and lung failure. This occurs after a 1 to 8 week exposure to excrement from a primarily particular mouse species that carries hantavirus. The mortality of hantavirus, the mortality rate of the hantavirus strain in the Southwest is about 38 to 50%. The hantavirus strains in the United States are not transmissible from person to person. And so this is an appropriate time to segue to Dr. Aaron Phipps, the state public health veterinarian with the New Mexico Department of Health. But before I do so, I'd like to kindly ask for everyone to please respect the privacy that Mr. Gene Hackman, Miss Betsy Hackman, and their family and friends deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gerald. I will now provide additional information about hantaviruses in New Mexico. There are many different types of hantaviruses found worldwide. These viruses are zoonotic, meaning they are transmitted from animals to humans. Hantaviruses are carried by rodents. The hantavirus found in New Mexico, the Sin Nombre virus, is found throughout the state, primarily in deer mice, but in other rodents as well. Hantavirus Pulmonary Syndrome is a rare disease caused by hantaviruses, but a small number of human infections are found every year in New Mexico. Over the past 5 years, New Mexico has confirmed between 1 and 7 hantavirus infections in humans each year. Through the end of 2024, we have identified 136 infections over the past 50 years in New Mexico residents, 5 of these in Santa Fe County. This is a serious disease. 42% of these infections here in New Mexico were fatal. Most transmission occurs around the patient's residence or workplace, and the New Mexico Department of Health typically conducts an environmental investigation at the residence of all hantavirus cases in our jurisdiction. This can help identify specific areas that may pose higher risk, providing insight into where transmission may have occurred and how to prevent future infections. On March 5th, the New Mexico Department of Health staff conducted a risk assessment of the property, including the main residence, as well as other structures on the property. This was critically important to address concerns about health risks to first responders, as well as to inform any prevention measures needed to protect the family and other individuals entering the property in the future. We assessed the risk of exposure in the primary residence as low, similar to other well-maintained houses in New Mexico. We did identify signs of rodent entry in other structures on the property and provided information and resources about reducing the risk of hantavirus transmission related to those areas. Hantavirus can be transmitted to people through rodent urine, droppings, or saliva, so it is important to take special steps when cleaning up after rodents. Avoiding contact with or breathing in aerosolized rodent urine or feces, especially in a poorly ventilated area, is key. Detailed guidance can be found on the New Mexico Department of Health and the CDC websites, but I will provide a very brief summary now. It is important to use gloves and a well-fitting N95 mask when around or cleaning rodent-infested areas, and to open any windows or doors for at least 30 minutes beforehand to increase ventilation. Spray the area thoroughly with a 10% bleach solution or a commercial disinfectant. Let it sit for 5 minutes. Next, clean the area with paper towels, then throw them away in a covered garbage can that is regularly emptied. Before removing gloves, wash your gloved hands with soap and water or with a disinfectant, and then after removing gloves, wash your hands again with soap and water. It's important to never sweep up or vacuum mouse droppings, since this can spread particles up into the air. Since hantavirus is found throughout New Mexico, awareness of these risks and how to reduce them is important for all New Mexicans. The New Mexico Department of Health extends our deepest condolences to the families and friends during this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that'll conclude the statements for today. We will go ahead and take questions. I ask that there be one question per agency, and please state who you're directing the question to, as there's several individuals here at this conference. Sir.
Sheriff, just to clarify the timeline here, does this mean Gene Hackman was likely home with his deceased wife for a week before he passed away himself?
Yes, I would assume that is the case.
Do you believe, given his Alzheimer's status, that Mr. Hackman was able to live on his own and survive for those 7 days?
I think that's more a question, maybe for Dr. Jarrell.
Just to repeat so that everyone could hear, the question was, do we believe that Mr. Hackman was able to live on his own and survive? The answer to that question is that Mr. Hackman showed evidence of advanced Alzheimer's disease. I'm not aware of what his normal daily functioning capability was. He was in a very poor state of health. He had significant heart disease, and I think ultimately that is what resulted in his death. I was able to look at fluid to determine if he was dehydrated, and I did not see evidence of dehydration. I did see evidence of very poor kidney function, and I think he died as a result of his heart disease and with Alzheimer's being that contributing factor.
What about starvation?
The question was, what about starvation? So there was no food in his stomach, which means he had not eaten recently, but he had also no evidence of dehydration.
So based on your understanding of the progression of the Alzheimer's, do you believe that he was possibly not aware that his wife had died or didn't know what to do in that situation?
It's difficult to answer. The question was he aware that Miss Hackman had died? And I think that question's difficult to answer, but I can tell you that he was in an advanced state of Alzheimer's, and it's quite possible that he was not aware that she was deceased.
This is for the sheriff. Considering the circumstances under which Mr. Hackman was found in the mudroom with his walking cane and sunglasses by him, do you think there is a possibility that he was trying to get help for his wife?
That's hard to answer. Again, it's hard to get into the frame of mind of what was happening at the time. And I don't know if we'll ever have the answer to that question, whether he was going to go for help or he wasn't. Sir.
Sheriff, are there any other big questions that you're trying to answer? I mean, does this answer the biggest questions you've had about their death in this case? Is there anything else that you're really seeking?
Yeah. So the question is there any other big questions that are left? I think a lot of questions were answered here today. I think there was, Dr. Durrell went over the cause of death, and I think a lot of those questions are answered. I think the timeline that we've been given as far as the pacemaker results and the history and evidence that we found as far as the timeline of Miss Arakawa, I think a lot of the questions have been answered. We are waiting on the cell phones, but I would very unlikely that the cell phones are going to or show anything else. Another question?
Sheriff, are there any signs of what have you learned about Mr. Hackman's communication after February 11th? Did you talk to any friends of his who had spoken with him during that week-long period, or know anything about what he was doing?
So the question is whether there was any communication from Mr. Hackman or activity, and no, at this point, no. I don't know if he used cell phones or technology or emails. There's no indication of that. So right now there is no activity from Mr. Hackman.
Sheriff, do you know if his pacemaker was connected to some sort of monitoring service? Was anyone tipped off that something was wrong?
The question was his pacemaker connected to a monitoring service? The answer to that is that his physician, one of his physicians, had contacted me and told me that they could see the data from the 17th, but that to really get the most information from that would come from the interrogation of the pacemaker. And that's as much as I can answer, not being a cardiologist.
They didn't say whether or not they were monitoring, or was his pacemaker equipped to send back data in exact time so that someone could say, hey, something's not right?
I can't answer that question. I'm sorry.
Question for you, Dr.
Sure.
Durrell.
Sir.
Was there any footage that came from the body cam from the house?
I'm sorry, what was?
Was there any footage or anything that you can see from like a body cam footage from the house?
Are you talking about the body cams that the investigator, the responding personnel were wearing?
Video? Is there any video?
No, there was no outside surveillance or interior surveillance that we are aware of in the residence. So there was nothing to show the activity inside or outside the residence, and not at this time, no.
Dr. Durrell, you mentioned that one of the symptoms of hantavirus is shortness of breath. We learned before that Betsy Hackman was laying on the floor when she was found. What kind of medical episode would she have had to cause her to fall and then not be able to ask for help?
The question was regarding shortness of breath with hantavirus and what kind of medical episode would we expect from somebody found on the floor. And I think to be able to answer that question fairly, I can go back to hantavirus infection, which initiates with what's called a prodromal phase. That's initially flu-like symptoms where a person has fever and muscle aches, that they don't feel well. After, of course, being exposed to rodent excrement. And that phase can last roughly 3 to 6 days. And then they can transition to that pulmonary phase where they have fluid in their lungs and around their lungs. And at that point, a person can die very quickly, within 24 to 48 hours, roughly speaking, without medical treatment. It's not uncommon to find someone down on the floor as part of a terminal collapse, so to speak. And that may very well have been what happened to
So
Ms. Hackman.
You're estimating her time of death on the 11th, or is it possible that she collapsed and was alive for a couple of days?
It's hard to say. I don't think she was on the floor alive for a couple of days. I think that she went through that time period, and I don't know when she began to feel ill. And those are just things that I don't know that I'm ever going to have the answers to. But I think, and going back to that initial time period, roughly 3 to 6 days of feeling ill and then succumbing pretty quickly after fluid begins to build up in the lungs.
Given the dog was created, is it fair to assume that the dog died with dehydration or starvation?
I don't think we know the answer to that. However, given the timelines presented, it is a possibility.
Is it possible the dog had the hantavirus?
Dogs do not get sick from hantavirus.
Sir. The question was if we knew on Betsy's visit to the pharmacy if there was some medication or if she consulted with a pharmacist. We don't have that information, and I'm not sure that we can get that information due to HIPAA laws, but we don't have that information right now. Sure. Sir. At this point, there's no indication that there was a caretaker at the home.
Sure. With the footage that you saw of Betsy on February 11th, was there any indication that she was feeling shortness of breath or having trouble moving around while she was running these errands?
You know, we can analyze the video a little more, but it's going to be hard to tell. She was walking around, she was shopping, she was visiting stores, but my detectives didn't indicate that there was any problem with her or struggle of her getting around. So, and I believe she had a mask on also, so I'll have to confirm that, but yeah, that there wasn't any indication of that. Sasha?
I don't know if we could better answer it, but when was the last time you guys dealt with a hantavirus case or responded to one?
Yeah, the question was last time the city of Santa Fe or the county dealt with a hantavirus case. I think we're gonna have to look into that. I'll get back to you. I would have to do some data before we pull that information.
Have you had any communication with the CDC? Is there a concern about a bigger public health issue here when it comes to hantavirus?
The CDC is aware of this case. Hantavirus is a notifiable condition nationally. All hantavirus cases are notified to them. This is not an unusual case. We get cases every year, unfortunately. So we're not seeing any indications of any abnormal or unusual patterns.
We'll go ahead and take 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap this up. Is there anybody that hasn't asked a question yet? Sir. Again, we're going through some of the communications, and I think the cell phones may have some indications of that prior to the 11th. But as of this moment, I don't have any information that she was indicating that she was feeling ill during any communication. One more question.
Since there's no sense that this is criminal in nature, are you closing this investigation? Are you still going to be releasing body camera footage from the deputies that entered the house? What happens next?
So we will deal with IPRA requests as necessary. If there's body camera or any request for public information, we will be releasing that because of the law. But yeah, we consider this an open investigation until we close the loopholes of the cell phones, until we finish out the necropsy results of the canine, and other loose ends that we need to tie up. But I think we're pretty close to the timeline and with the information that Dr. Jarrell provided.
One question on the heart disease. Is it fair to describe this as a heart attack, or is it not? Is that not an accurate term for the heart disease that you suffered?
The question was, is it fair to conclude that Mr. Hackman died from a heart attack? And the answer to that is that it's a little bit difficult to say. I saw no microscopic evidence of a recent heart attack. However, those changes can also take some time to develop, several hours to develop, so that I can see it under the microscope. He could have had an abnormal heart rhythm. We already know that he was in atrial fibrillation on the 18th, and that could have evolved into a more terminal heart rhythm.
Heart failure, an okay way to describe it? Use that terminology.
The question was, did Mr. Hackman have heart failure? Oftentimes we see fluid around the lungs and heart failure and congestion of the liver. I did not see that in his case, but he had very poor heart, or very extensive heart disease. And so he would have been predisposed to abnormal heart rhythms, and hence he had a pacemaker as well.
Thank you, everybody. That'll conclude the press conference for today. Thank you, everybody.
All right, folks, we're going to recap. Come on in. Aerial footage of Gene Hackman's home. Wow, interesting. Thoughts. Come on in, folks. Very bizarre, strange set of circumstances. Wife dies first from this, how do you say that? Hantavirus? I had to start Googling around. Interesting. We're going to talk more about that. I got Magnolia in the chat. Hello, Magnolia.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
So the wife dies first. They think around February 11th. And then they say Hackman died on the 18th based off the pacemaker. And he died from cardiovascular disease, or, and also Alzheimer's that he had too. Mm-hmm. Very strange.
Yeah. Well, it's not what I don't think anyone was expecting this. Most people, I don't think, even considered that she could have died first. That never even crossed my mind, but it sounds like that's what happened. And they talked about that she had gone to CVS on the 9th. And I think the reason that they pointed that out is just, it sounds like she had been ill. She was going to CVS to, maybe get some flu medications, because the doctor there said that this disease presents as the flu. So she probably thought she had the flu. She went to CVS, maybe got some flu medications, went back home. But she also said that this hantavirus, it can cause death very quickly, cause a collapse. So, and we looked this up during the live. A hantavirus is spread between rodents. It's a rodent, like rats. So it can be spread from rats to humans, but it does not spread from human to human. So it sounds like she was either exposed to rat droppings, or was even bitten or scratched by a rat that was infected. And she got sick. So, I mean, that's a very, very serious thing. I know a lot of people in the chat are saying they've never heard of this, but if you get bit by a rat, it's very, very serious. You need to make sure, you don't have any symptoms. In Little Rock, where I lived, rats are a major problem in certain parts of the city. It's just the way it is in some places in the country, and apparently down in New Mexico and Santa Fe area where they were living, it sounds like there is a rat issue there too. So, I mean, if the rat's not diseased, it's not that bad. But if the rat is carrying this disease and you get bit or you're exposed to the droppings, you can get very, very sick. And she even said there's a high mortality rate for this virus.
Yeah,
So it
rapid
sounds like the
heartbeat.
hantavirus caused like some pulmonary issues, maybe a blood clot or something along those lines. And she sounds like she died pretty quickly, just the way they characterize that. And then we have poor Gene, who it sounds like was alone for about 6 or 7 days after that. She said that he had advanced Alzheimer's. So we don't even know if he was aware that she had died, which makes it even more sad. She mentioned he had no food in his stomach, indicating he had not eaten for a while. So it sounds like he was in bad health, unable to care for himself. They had no other caretakers. Clearly, they had the maintenance people who came several days later, but no one there around the clock looking after them. It's been widely reported they're reclusive. They essentially moved here for that reason. They wanted to be alone. Gene wanted a peaceful life away from other people. This was their lifestyle. This is how they lived. Really limited contact, even with family members. The neighbors really didn't know them. I think their next door neighbors said that they had dinner with them once, like 20 years ago, but mainly they just stayed in their house. People really didn't see much of them.
So, a cardiovascular disease, just because I know some people in the chat were asking, that's not a heart attack, right? That's not a heart attack. He didn't have a heart attack, did he?
Well, she said they couldn't really say for sure, just because when a patient has a heart attack, it causes some type of scarring or something that can be seen on a microscope, the damage. But she said sometimes it can take time for that damage to develop to be able to see under the microscope. So it was hard for her to say, yes, he died of a heart attack, or no, he didn't. But essentially, he had advanced heart disease, very poor health, and advanced Alzheimer's as well. So that could explain why he wasn't eating. I would assume that
but
was the one who made sure he had all his meals, took his medications, all those things. And so without her, it's beyond sad, Steph. It's like Gracie. It's just like, wow.
Magnolia, one thing I find just strange and bizarre, and I want to believe this assessment. I know there's some in the chat that don't believe it. I want to believe the assessment here and the determination here and the timeline here. But man, you got February 11th where they feel that she died, Betsy, and then the 18th. That's 7 days. Now you see the house there. It's a pretty big house. But was the Alzheimer's that bad where Hackman didn't know that she was dead for 7 days? Like, at least, like, not, they're in the presence of each other's home there. It's big. I mean, was it that bad that he wasn't aware of what was going on in that house to know that she was dead? Mm-hmm. Or could it be a possibility he found her on the 18th and found her and maybe like saw her and tried to move away, and then he had cardiac arrest, maybe had a heart attack because his wife is dead.
Yeah, that could have happened.
Like finding her and just in shock and like, where, oh my God, my beloved wife. And, because a lot of times we hear about incidents, elderly couples. You'd be shocked. There's a lot of elderly couples that actually die in the house just hours apart.
Yeah.
One finds the other, one sad, broken heart, death do us part type of, and the other one dies pretty quickly after the first one dies.
Yeah, and I think that they were married. Weren't they married like 40 years? A really long time. So yeah, that does happen. We hear that often, especially with them. I mean, there was a significant age gap here, 30 years.
30 years.
So yeah, so for him, you know, he was in very poor health and clearly depended on Betsy to take care of him.
All right. Well, you know, it's not a murder, folks. I don't know. I don't know if people are going to still feel like he was murdered or it was some sort of conspiracy, whatever like that. It just seems like, you know, both had, her with the rats and the rodents is scary because now I'm going to be even more fearful of rats. But it looks like it's medical conditions that both of them had. And she had the Hantavirus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but now, you know, it makes me want to, like, if I see a rat, I might freak out now. Now that got me all doing the research on Hantavirus. I wasn't even aware of the Hantavirus.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why rats in a home are so bad. I mean, it's terrible. And they, yeah. Tanya said, what about New York? How does anyone stay alive in New York? Yeah, I mean, there are certain parts of the country that have this rat problem. But you know, if the rat is not diseased, it's not gonna do anything. But if the rat has a disease, and the way that they spoke just now at the press conference, this is a disease that they see in that area.
But I did an AI overview, and the AI overview says mice can carry it too.
Rodent.
Deer mouse. It says deer mouse, whitefoot mouse, rice rat, and cotton rat.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you don't want to have rats and mice running around your house. I mean, that's why this is a great example. That's why it's dangerous. You can't
I'm thinking here in this environment here, you know, their home is on top of a hill. It's very woodsy. It's that New Mexico feel. I'm sure there's a lot of mice all around there.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yep.
Scary.
Very shocking outcome here.
Pretty shocking outcome for sure. I'm seeing if we could get any additional information to relay on the circumstances here, but pretty much it's a case closed. As they said, the investigation is still open, but I think they have to go through some formalities here.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much it's over. And that's it. You know, it begs the question, though, you know, as elderly couples and everything like that, you know, should people have caretakers when they get into a certain years of their lives? You know, would a caretaker in there made a difference?
Yeah, I think it would have for sure. But yeah, so Bad Kitty said the way you contract it is by inhaling contaminated dust or coming into contact with rodent urine, droppings, or saliva. Someone else said deer mice. She was messing in her outside buildings and was exposed, not inside her home. So, yeah, they have this property here, and I don't remember if it was the medical examiner or someone else at the press conference, basically just said, you know, this is a thing in this area.
So I'm reading on AI overview. I'm trying to do the research, trying to get as much information that I'm saying that says death from hantavirus can occur within days to weeks after exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Symptoms appear 1 to 5 weeks after exposure, usually 2 to 4 weeks. So it takes a while.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a while. So it's, you know, she could have gotten, you know, maybe the month prior, maybe sometime in January. And then the symptoms just started coming into play. It begins with flu-like illness, fevers, chills, muscle aches, and headaches. Now, what did she go to the pharmacy for?
Well, that's what I'm saying. She clearly went to the pharmacy because she was experiencing flu-like symptoms that this virus causes. So she probably went there to get flu medicine.
Yeah, I 100% believe in this assessment here, by the way. I have a lot of questions, but I 100% agree with the assessment here. I mean, these are the professionals. This is the medical examiner, man. They have experience. They know about this stuff. They're not trying to cover anything up. It's not a conspiracy. They're not trying to shield anyone. This is their assessment. I'm just trying to get some more of an understanding of it, because this is a hantavirus. You always learn something new every day. Every day we all learn something new. I was totally unaware of the hantavirus. I don't know if other people were aware.
Well, but you know that rats and mice carry disease.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So the name of that is hantavirus. You knew that they carry disease, just not the name of it.
So hantavirus are found throughout New Mexico and are primarily in deer mice. Human infections are rare but serious. They're saying there has been 136 such cases in the past 50 years in the state. And 42% of those cases were fatal. So in the last 50 years in New Mexico alone, there was 136 cases of hantavirus. And 42% of that were fatal.
Mm-hmm.
So almost half.
It's very, very serious. And, I'm just guessing here, but it sounds like, I mean, this is an educated guess, but based on what the sheriff said, she was self-treating. It seemed like she probably thought she just had the flu or a cold or something and went to CVS to get some stuff and went back home, and she got worse. And the whatever the fatal episode happened, and it seems like it came on quickly. But I wish she had gone to the doctor instead. I think if she had gone to the doctor, they would have said so. But they didn't mention any doctor visits. They only mentioned the CVS. So that's why I think she probably just had these certain symptoms and felt like, oh, I'll just run up to CVS and get some Theraflu and, I'll be fine.
Well,
that's probably what she thought.
The pills, the media is confirming that it was thyroid medications. So is that what she went to CVS for those specific medications, or something else?
Yeah.
Because thyroid medications. So, yeah, it's very, very sad story. Magnolia, I'm going to put you on the spot. What is your favorite Gene Hackman movie?
Oh, let me think. He's been in so many, but there was one he was in with John Travolta that I liked. I can't remember the name right now. John Travolta is one of my favorites, so I always.
I personally like Lex Luthor in Superman when he played Lex Luthor. But these Hollywood actors, I didn't even realize he was that old. Yeah, you think of the image of Gene Hackman and you think of him what he looked like in these movies, not the images of his later years in life. I mean, he looked really brittle.
I think his bigger movies were things like The Firm with Tom Cruise. That was a massive movie. Also, Unforgiven. That was a huge blockbuster too. What else? I just pulled up his list. Crimson Tide was a huge
Hoosiers, the basketball movie.
Get Shorty, The Birdcage. Oh yeah, The Birdcage. I love that movie.
So what happens to his estate now? Does it just go to his who gets the house now? What happens to this house now?
Yeah, I believe that there were two daughters. I don't know if it's his daughters or their daughters together, but I have the impression it's his daughters. The media kind of made a big deal about it the day after they were found dead in the home. The two daughters were seen going out for breakfast, smiling, and the media made a thing of that. But so I think there are a few adult children involved. Dreamer says that Betsy did not have any children. So yeah, so those 2 daughters would be his. Yeah, so I guess the daughters would be the heirs. Hopefully we don't have to see any type of fighting over the estate or anything like that. And let's, let Gene Hackman rest in peace.
TMZ is saying, although the medical investigators did not use the word heart attack, it seemed they were going in that direction. Although the medical investigator said she could not squarely say that was the cause. I mean, 95 years old, man, very grateful to be able to live that long. That's a long time. So I'm sure he had a wonderful life, love of his life, the pictures. Hopefully it was everyone, it was easy. It was easy.
And also from what I've read, Betsy really did take care of him. She was very serious about taking care of him, making sure that he did his exercises, that he was, doing what he was eating well, things like that. Apparently she really took her role as his caretaker very seriously. And yeah, it's just really unfortunate that they wouldn't have had even like a maid or something who comes in a couple times a week, or somebody who would have come in and found her at least, and maybe would have been able to help Gene as well. But yeah, this is just a tragic ending.
All right, folks. Well, we got an understanding. I think it's case closed, and I don't think we're going to get anything else out of it. And I don't think anything else would be shocking at this point, right? It's a very, very sad situation, and it's just a reminder, our health. Be mindful of our health, and maybe I'm not saying that they did anything wrong, but as us get older or anyone gets older, maybe you should have a caretaker around your house in case something bad happens. You could be tended to very quickly. That could save you possibly.
Yeah, I doubt that it's sad, but it's something that I'm sure she didn't expect. She probably just thought, like I said, she probably just thought she had the flu or a cold or something like that. And it didn't even occur to her that this was possibly a fatal illness that she had. To me, that's what it sounds like, that she didn't realize how serious it really was and was attempting to just sort of treat it at home instead of go see a doctor. Yeah.
By the way, I know a lot of people were probably thinking this was going to go to like a Matthew Perry type route, or someone provided someone with bad drugs or something, or some sort of bad actor involved in here, or bad person that did something to somebody. I mean, I'll be honest, that's what I was kind of thinking as the beginning when they said suspicious, and kind of kept us wondering, was there somebody else involved here? But I'm glad that's buried. And that's not true. There's no one involved. But, there's always these Hollywood mysteries, right?
Yeah, and Steph has a good point, especially with him having late-stage Alzheimer's, heart disease, all these other things. Betsy's not a nurse, true. So, it is very unfortunate. But hopefully, this is something that people can at least takes advice from. If you're living with someone that's much older, that's in poor health, maybe it's a good idea to think ahead and make sure that if something were to happen to you, that person would still be looked after. And I think that that's sort of what happened here. It sounds like she took good care of him as long as she was able to do so, but there was not a backup, to check on him, to maybe have someone come every few days, check and make sure everything's good. These are things you need to think about when your loved ones are getting older, because anything can happen. I mean, yeah, she was only in her 60s, but look at what happened to her. So, she could have had a car accident on the way to CVS and he would have been left alone, so make sure your people are taken care of and you have someone looking out for them.
Life expectancy in the United States for a male is 77 years old. So I just wanted to point that out. So he exceeded that by 20 years almost. So long live Gene Hackman, Betsy, the poor dog. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Hackman family and the family on Betsy's side. If anything else happens with this case or anything like that, any additional press conferences or anything like that, we will share it on the channel for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. Until next time, stay safe out there. Be safe. JLR Magnolia Investigates. Have a good day, everyone.